Welcome to K-Drama School. I'm your host, Grace Jung, and class is now in session. Today I'm going to talk about the show Encounter, which came out in the year 2018. It stars Song Hye-kyo and Park Bo-gum, which is a very interesting coupling considering their massive age gap. This is when Park Bo-gum was in his early to mid 20s and when Song Hye-kyo was pushing 40. Of course, nobody would question that if it was the reverse gender, right? Like an older man and a younger woman. But in this instance, it's a much older woman and a younger man. So, progressive in some ways, yes, I suppose. But I might have mentioned this in some of my other episodes, but there is sort of a dearth when it comes to male Korean leads who are like in their 30s and at their prime, like at the height of their fame, really kicking ass. I mean, they're very few and far in between, but there's a huge demand for Korean dramas. Park Bo-gum, massive celebrity since he did Reply, 1988, and they were just like, let's match him with the other biggest Hallyu celebrity we have, which is Hong Ye-kyo. And this show cost a lot of money. They shot scenes in Cuba, as you guys have seen, which I thought was pretty cool. I thought that was very impressive as a production feat. And this show was written by Yu Young-ah, and she wrote a number of Korean dramas. She's written 39, which all of you have seen. She wrote Entertainer, which came out a few years ago. She wrote Belle Ami, which I have not seen. She wrote Sacred Divorce, which I have also not seen. But she's written many Korean films, and one of them includes Kim Ji-young 1982, which is based on a novel, and that film came out in the year 2019 and created a bit of a, how do I say, a mild unrest when it came to gender politics, especially from misogynistic people saying that this movie was anti-male and too feminist. Like it sucks that that even needs to happen, but that's what this film caused. So that film stars Kong Yu and Chung Yu-mi. They were in that very famous movie Train to Busan. This writer Yu Young-ah, she also wrote My Annoying Brother, starring Cho Jung-suk and Do Kyung-soo, which I've seen. It's an okay movie, definitely a melodrama, but starring two male leads. Anyway, the show Encounter, it has a number of fascinating qualities. For instance, like it's got kind of this like Cinderella vibe, like a Cinderella grid, so to speak, right? Like you have this young man who is from a working class background, like his dad is a fruit salesman, right? And very like modest, humble background who just managed to work his way into this hotel, like what through his own merit, right? Like he studied very well and successfully landed this job at a prestigious hotel, but it just so happens that he falls in love with the CEO of this hotel, right? And we've seen this kind of trope with like the young working class person who is poor falling in love with the CEO. Like we see this time and time again. But there are several things that are different about this. For instance, like in all these dramas where like the young girl who is poor falling in love with the CEO is like she always is indebted to him. Like she owes him money or he helps her out, like bails her out with some debt that she's, sitting with, but there's no debt in this drama, which is very, very interesting. Like I guess when it comes to gender politics, like a man can't be indebted to a woman and still be in love with her. I mean, I thought this was fascinating. The other thing that I thought was interesting is yeah, like, you always have this scene in a lot of K drama rom coms where the rich CEO guy gives the poor girl a makeover. Like he hires, a hairdresser, makeup artist, uh, puts a personal shopper to her and gets her all like redone up. And then there's that scene where like the camera like closes in on his face when he first sees her and he's like in love with her, right? But they have a scene like that in this show, Encounter, where Song Ye Kyo's character, like she's not expecting him, but Park Bo Gum's character is like taken aside by the CEO's chauffeur, who is like playing matchmaker. Like the chauffeur is like the fairy godmother in this drama, and he gets Park Bo Gum to, put on a new outfit, new shoes, like get his hair like gelled up, and then he shows up at the ball and smooches Song Ye Kyo's character, right? It's like such a fascinating scene. There is a time limit, like the carriage will turn into a pumpkin. Like, this is not like an extended thing. Like he needs to go back to being a work person at the office the next day. She needs to go back to her position as the CEO. It's really, really fascinating. I think it's an interesting choice as a writer to rewrite the whole Cinderella tale by swapping genders, but it's just interesting, like this sort of carefulness that these careful precautions that people take. Like, what would it look like if the guy was really completely utterly like in the shits dirt poor and he did need her financial help? Like, would that make him less of a man? Would that make him unattractive as a male character? I wonder, because underneath this, what appears to be like a progressive narrative choice is this assumption that masculinity is inherently tied to fiscal responsibility, right? And yeah, I find it interesting. Today, I'm going to be talking to an old friend. His name is Saeed Green. He is a Berlin based comedian and musician, very talented dude. I met him in Berlin back in 2018, I guess. And yeah, like I enjoyed the times that I spent with Saeed. He's a former veteran, served in the US Army right after 9/11, and he has some really fascinating insights and stories to tell. So let's talk to Saeed Green.
What's up, Grace?
Very nice.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Saeed?
I'm chilling. Just been over here, just
Yeah?
yeah, just working and
Yeah?
yeah, just breathing.
How's comedy? How's comedy in Berlin?
You know what's crazy? I don't know too much. Not on the English side. You know what I mean? I've been doing like I don't know. I focus more on German at this point.
German stand up. That's great.
Yeah. Plus, I do like music shows. So I do like beat looping and stuff like that. Like for the last few months, I've been going back and forth to Dortmund, and well, not back
Hmm.
and forth, but I had a few shows for the last few months over in Dortmund. And I was doing like
Yeah,
beat looping and stuff like that, and like a little bit of jokes with the audience back and forth, and it's been pretty dope.
that's great.
Uh,
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I know how like, you're also musically inclined, so that's great. Are you still making like your videos, like your little content videos,
yo,
your little sketch things?
I haven't even had time to be honest. Like, nah, I haven't had time. It's been crazy because like with my regular job, and that's another reason why I don't get on stage as much as I used to. Like it's
Huh.
like with my regular job, I'm a instructor, so like I teach like project management and stuff like that. So I'm doing that throughout the week, and so like with that, I'm like making jokes and making like pretty much doing my comedy through my training like all day. So that's been
Got
like
it.
my stage for the most part.
Yeah, yeah. So you're kind of getting your needs fulfilled through that.
Yeah, pretty much, pretty much.
Yeah.
It's like all in German, so that's already like like the whole point about getting on stage is to have like that challenge of, like getting somebody to laugh who wanted to laugh but necessarily didn't expect to be made to laugh. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
for me, like if I talk to these German students and I got them in there cracking up while they're learning, so it's like for me, it's like, oh man, that's you know what I mean? I get everything from it. So
Yeah, it's pretty satisfying.
it's pretty dope. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's great, man. No, no, I was like, oh, I need to talk to Saeed because since like about 3, 4, I would say about 3, 4 weeks ago, I decided that I'm gonna sort of like lay off meat and dairy because I know you're very vegan. You're still vegan, yeah?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And like I remember when we were hanging out like back in Berlin, we used to talk a lot about like diet and food and like philosophy and shit. And um no, like I was just like, oh, like I want to talk to Saeed, like I want to catch up and see what he's up to. But like I mean, for me, like I'm not like you. Like I know that you turned to veganism. Well, let's talk about that first. Like I know the reason why you turned to veganism in the first place. So
Mm.
like can you sort of get into that a little bit? Like
Oh man, like so many reasons to be honest. You know what's crazy? I was like, I just ran across a message from somebody who I talked to like the day before I turned vegan. But like to just take it back, so I used to be a soldier, right?
yeah, yeah.
So
Were you in the army or Marines?
I was in the army, and so
Mhm.
when
Right.
I was in the army, I got a bunch of injuries because I was a truck driver. So I
Yeah.
got like a bunch of injuries while I was in the military, and so I got like 3 herniated discs. I got one in my neck, I got two in my lower back, and like I still have
Okay.
problems to this day, but like through veganism, I've been able to like reduce the pain a bit. And so like I just to be
Yeah.
like I just woke up the other day and like I was like mad stiff. I couldn't walk and my back was just like locked. But
Uh-huh.
it's not as bad as it was before. So like if I eat meat and like and my body's just like taking all the resources from the rest of my body to like process it through my system, it just causes like
Yeah.
a whole lot of problems. So I'm okay with making that sacrifice. But I had been like trying a bunch of different methods of just like reducing the pain because it was crazy.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
I was doing like pescatarian, something like that, which is like Italian
Pescatarian.
with Italian word for fish or something like that. So I was
Yep.
only
Yep.
eating fish, and that was cool. And then I started like eating right for my blood type, which is like AB,
Uh-huh.
and that was cool.
Yep.
And I'm just like, okay, okay, okay. Then I went on a business trip to I was on a business trip in Turkey. And on
Yeah.
my ride back, this was April 2000. I'm sorry, this was March 28th, 2018. I was on a flight back, and I was seated next to this like straight up hippie chick,
Yeah.
and we just busted
Yeah.
up on the airplane, and she was telling me about the whole veganism thing, and I was like, okay, that sounds kind of dope. And we just got into a long discussion about veganism, and like we exchanged numbers, and we just just talked every once in a while, well, like over the next day or whatever. And I was like, yo, I think I'm going to try this vegan thing. And this was like on like the 31st. I was like, in fact, I'm going to start tomorrow. So on the 1st
Yeah.
of April 2018, I was just like, yo, I'm done with meat. And
Yeah.
I've been vegan ever since. And like, I feel great. I mean, I still got pain,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? But like, as I get older, I'm still happy that I made that decision because it's not as bad as it could be. Just just I'm 42 now, so like as you get older, it's just like it just gets worse and worse and worse.
Exactly.
But yeah,
Exactly.
it's been pretty dope. I got more energy now. You know what I mean? I think a whole lot faster. I'm more productive throughout my day, and
Yeah.
I can't complain. Yeah,
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. No, I remember like you talking about that because um I remember like you also the way you got into the army was also fascinating, right? Yeah.
just like growing up in America, I fell into a situation where like racism like caught its grips on me, and
Yeah.
I was driving. Me and my brother we was on our way to Maryland. I'm sorry, we were on our way to
Mhm.
Virginia. to drop off some clothes because me and my brother, we had a clothing business. And we used to go back and forth to New York like every other day, buy clothes and bring it back. We started that
Oh shit. Okay.
like 17, and this was around like
Mm.
19 when this situation happened. I'm about to explain. So we driving, and you get hot. You out there, you young.
Yeah.
I'm smoking a bunch of weed and just whatever else is out there on the street.
Yeah.
But we loaded up on
Yeah.
weed. We was like, it's gonna be a long trip because I think it was like 6 hours from like Philly to Virginia. So
Uh-huh. It's
we're
far.
driving through. It's mad far, and
Mhm.
we're driving through um, Maryland, and
Yeah.
we were high. We are high,
Yeah.
whatever, and it
Yeah.
was like on a dark road, and we got lost. And I'm the one
Yeah.
driving, and my brother was like, "Yo, I think we need to bust a U-turn." So I said, "Okay, cool." The road, there was like no
Uh,
lights whatsoever, and I'm
yeah.
driving, and I'm like, "Okay,
Yeah.
I bust a U-turn." So I make a U-turn and drive into a ditch,
Yeah.
and a big ditch. I'm talking about like I don't know, like 5, 6 feet, but like not too steep. And I drove down into this ditch, and I promise you, it was like a whole family of reindeer. Like you have up, right? You done drove
Oh
into the
my
wrong
god.
ditch. And so we're out there for hours. We're just like hoping somebody drive past. Eventually, some lady drove past and she called the cops for us. And the cops came and pulled the car out the ditch, but then searched the car illegally. Yeah, they searched the car illegally, had us on the hood of the car. We out there in the middle of nowhere. These dudes got deep accents. This is out in like Wicomico, Maryland.
Oh.
So I'm on the hood of the car. I looked at my brother. I was like, I love you, man. I'm sorry. So I thought we were done, yo. I thought we were dead that night. And they searched the car illegally, found the weed. I had like $500 on me. My brother had $900 in his pocket. They looked in the trunk of the car, found a whole bunch of clothes in the car, and they was like,
Right.
"These guys are drug dealers, they're trafficking." So by the time I went back to court, I took my pop with me. My father's a pastor, and so my parents,
Yeah.
they saw I came from a decent family. And the judge was
Yeah.
like, okay, listen, I'm gonna put you out on like stout document, which is like a probation type of thing. He said, but if you do
Okay.
anything wrong, I'm gonna bring you back in and I'm gonna process you pretty much at the extent of the law. So it's like probation for 3 years, but I don't have to report to anybody. He said, so you can go
Mm.
into the military, do what you got to do, but if you mess up, you're coming back. So that's how I got into the military. I went on my own court because I'm like, okay, I got to figure something out. By this time, I just kind of got tired of getting in trouble back in Philly, and I'm just like, yo, you know how it's like where I'm from. You got only a few ways out. You can either die, you go to prison, or you
Mhm.
go into the military. And
Uh-huh.
like the recruiter, not the recruiter, but the lawyer that I had, he was only good for one thing, and that was pretty much like looking at my history and say, yo, he's been in trouble before, but it was never like a felony. You know what I
Right.
mean? And so, they found some stuff. And the thing that really got us off was the fact that everything was that they searched illegally. They weren't even supposed to be inside my car.
Exactly. Yeah. There was no, I mean, you guys asked for help because you fell into a ditch. Like this was an
Yeah,
emergency situation.
we fell into a ditch. But the crazy thing about it is like, so my brother, we got out within the same year, 9/11 happened, right? So
Yeah.
now I
Exactly. Yep.
just got into the military. And like I went through all my training, and like I think like 2 weeks after I finished the training, 9/11
Yeah.
happened. We driving up the street one day, and like I'm listening to on the radio. I'm actually driving up the street with a recruiter, and like we listened to it on the radio. I remember this construction dude walked past the front of the car.
Yeah.
It was like, we got
Yeah.
guns too, because I had my uniform on. He was like, we got guns too, and I'm like,
Fuck.
okay. And
Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah, it was just
I know that's the thing. Like when you and I were talking, I remember where we were too. We were at it was the bar where Rohit was running his show, like in the basement, you remember? What was the name of that bar again? I forget. Um
revolver or something like that.
Revolver, exactly. It was the Revolver show. And you were just kind of telling me like how you ended up serving in the army. And I was like, oh my God, like it's like messed up. And then I was like, so you went like right after 9/11, like right when we were about to go to war. And you were like, yeah, I guess I did. Like
No,
that hadn't even occurred to you at the time. But you were like, I guess I did. Like, it was just like timing wise it just sucked, you know, because
Yeah.
it's
And you know what's crazy? The wild thing about it is, let me see. So we got out, I got out in February. 1 year later, my brother wound up
yeah.
passing away, right? So
Oh
the thing
shit.
when I
I'm
was out
sorry.
there, it's been a while. You know, it's crazy sometimes. You know the wild thing about it though? So I got out in February. My brother passed away 1 year later in February. And then 1 year after that, I was in Iraq.
Yeah.
So in February. So I think yeah, I was in Iraq early February. So we went in like right when the war was like kicking off. So for whatever reason, every February, within a year's time, I was in like a new mind state, new location. It was just like crazy. But it's been like a
Mm.
wild road, man. But yeah, so that's how I got into the military and also how I'm here in Germany. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, when you were, I mean, you did tour in Iraq, right? Was it Iraq or Afghanistan
All
for
right.
you? Were you Iraq?
Yeah.
I mean, like when you were out there and you're serving, and I mean, I don't know if like this is like, rude of me to ask or anything. If it's like uncomfortable, like by all means, you can stop me.
Um,
Um, like when you're out there serving, like how did you feel? Like were you like afraid? Were you anxious? Or were you just like just focused on what your task was, your duties? Like what was your general feeling when you first got there?
you,
And then how did those feelings evolve as you were serving there and how long were you there and stuff?
to be honest, when I was there, like I kind of went to Iraq because I knew the war was popping off. You know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
kind of
Yep.
went to Iraq because like I just got tired of like trying to deal with like what happened to my brother in the same location. You know, so like by the time
I
I got to
see.
Iraq,
Got it.
I didn't even care. It's like
Right.
I was definitely still alert, but I can't
Yeah.
remember, and like this is full honesty, I can't remember not one moment of being scared. I definitely remember being super cautious because like there were times we driving on like dark road in the middle of the desert with nothing but night vision goggles on. I don't know if you
Yeah.
understand how that feels. Like everything that
Yeah.
moves, it's you feel like it's a person, whether it's a bush,
I see.
rat, or whatever.
I
It's
see.
weird. And we're
Uh,
driving like 18-wheeler vehicles transporting fuel. It was like, and we were always targeted, bombs getting shot at, just like crazy. So I was
yeah.
definitely cautious, but I can't remember being feared, like being scared. And to be honest, I kind of like I felt peace out there. It was a crazy thing because like I spent a lot of time just out in the middle of the desert. And
Oh.
when you're out there in the middle of the desert and there's like no matter what direction you look in, there's nothing. And then you look up in the
Mm.
sky, you can see every star in the sky.
Mm. Mhm.
Like it's the greatest form of peace. It's so crazy. Like I went on a business trip over in Abu Dhabi back in 2008.
Mhm.
I had to teach
Mhm.
a class over there. And when I arrived in the desert, I just felt like I was home.
Mm.
It was I don't know. It's a feeling that I can't really even explain. Plus, when I was in Philly, like Philly was already a war zone anyway. Like I had art when I was 17, I got
Exactly.
shot at. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So
Mhm.
I mean, you know how it is in America. It's a wild place to be. I was more comfortable
Yep.
in Iraq, knowing who the quote unquote enemy was, than I was in Philly, not knowing if my friend was going to try to rob me or kill me or something like that.
That's
So
fascinating. Fascinating. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. That's such a good point, because like you as like a black man in Philly, you know, you were because you were constantly like shell shocked anyway
yeah,
because of the environment that you were in. When you go out to the desert, it's like okay, like at least you don't have to worry about like your kin, like or whatever. Like it's not like your home ground being like exploded or whatever. It's like you're out there in a remote location, you and your colleagues, regardless of your race, you are sort of standing banded together as one. And so there's that unity and that security, but there's also the peace of the quiet remoteness of the desert. It's like, yeah, no, thanks for explaining that because it does sort of put a lot of things into perspective. I think, civilians have a very black and white perspective on what veterans go through and what they experience. But it's like it's more than just the how do I call it, the conflict or combat. It's way more than that. It's like it's a full experience. You were also like 20 years younger, right? You were like so young. You were such a young man, and like everything was like new, and like it's a totally different location, completely different from Philadelphia, right? Like where you were in Iraq.
You want to know what's crazy?
Mm,
Iraq, and I've been around the world, and Iraq was probably the most beautiful place I've ever been. Like
mm,
Baghdad, it's
mhm.
like you drive up the streets, like certain parts, the streets look brand new. The highways are huge.
Yeah,
There's palm trees
yeah.
on both sides. Like, and I was
Oh,
a
wow.
part of like the quick reaction force for some time, and like it was only 11 of us. So like our responsibility was like anytime the base got attacked, we had to go off into the village and find out who's
Yeah,
doing it. So we spent a lot of time in the village. I was away from my unit for a little bit, and so we spent a lot of time in the village with the actual with people in the village, and so
yeah.
sometimes we would actually be inside the house sitting on the floor eating with these people.
Right.
I'm talking about like we're eating from the same, we're sitting on the same blanket, eating from the same big tray and drinking from the same bowl. And
Yeah,
I swear to you, this water tasted like it came straight from the Euphrates River. But it was
yeah,
like
yeah,
an experience that you just don't get anywhere else because then you get to see who these people really are. And the people
yeah,
many times were just so hospitable. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So I got a chance to like just see just a completely other side of what the rest of the world sees. So it was just like,
Uh-huh.
I don't know, it was an amazing experience to be honest.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it was beautiful. Like the kids, I played with the kids a lot of times. Now it's crazy because there were so many different situations. There were times where we'd be driving up the road and bombs would go off. You're like, oh, like I've had bombs go off. Like I was driving with a friend of mine, I'm not gonna say his name, but like it was only maybe a meter, 2 meters away, but it didn't go
Shit.
off the way it was supposed to. It like dudded out. But the sound of the explosion was still there. So and like the heart just pops out of your chest. So it was like there were a lot of close calls, but there were also a lot
Yeah.
of situations where it's like, oh man, I just met this kid the other day and it was the coolest kid ever. And so
Right.
you're bouncing back and forth the whole time between these different experiences and you kind of don't know what experience to trust because you just moving the whole time. But then eventually you
Right.
accept, okay, this is what it is, and I'm just gonna keep on moving forward until we get out of here.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. When were you discharged? Like when were you sent back home?
I got out back in February 2006, so that was the second time I was in Iraq.
Again, February.
Yeah. Oh wow, I didn't even think. I didn't even think about yo. I didn't even think about that. That's. I don't know what it is about February. That's crazy.
February, February. I was born in February. I was born February 20th. February is like the month of Pisces, where Pisces begins, like the zodiac of Pisces begins. It's Aquarius cusp. It's a very interesting time. Like it's a very mystical time. February is a very mystical time.
Mm,
Like a lot of people think that, Christ was born in February. Like they say he might be a Pisces. uh, Christ was around during the age of Pisces, like right now, currently we're sort of in the transition into age of Aquarius, but Christ was around during the age of Pisces. So like February is a very mystical month in general.
that's
So
cool.
yeah.
I didn't even think about
Mhm.
it. And so I got out in 2006 of February.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah. But yeah, that was my second time in Iraq. And during that time, I wasn't driving trucks because I was injured
Okay.
from the first time. This time, they put me inside an office. And
Okay.
I had a lot of troubles during this time because I didn't know that I had PTSD. Like nobody even really understood PTSD during this time. Like you take, I was in a war zone the first year for a whole year, and I'm out
Yeah.
there like really out there on the battlefield with my pretty much my army family. Like I'm still connected with like so many of them now. Like we're still connected
Of
on
course.
look every once in a while we talk. That's my peoples.
Of
Um,
course.
but you take a soldier out of this war zone now, you put him in an office, and you expect for him to just like be normal. and I was never an
Yeah.
type anyway. So like it was a struggle
Yeah.
already. So they was like, yo,
Like what were some of the details of it? Like what was particularly like stressful about that environment? Like how were you reacting? What was going through your mind? Like what was that
um,
process? Like
well, the
what
stressful
was
thing
the
about it was
difficulty?
the unit that they assigned me to, nobody from that
Yeah.
unit had ever been to war before. And
Okay.
it was an administrative unit. And so now I'm
So
around.
you couldn't relate to anybody. You couldn't really
I
connect to
couldn't relate
anybody.
to nobody except for this one guy. I'm not gonna say his name, but like I got love for
Right.
the guy.
Yeah.
That's my dude. He looked out for me when nobody else did. But like
Sure.
they put me in this environment where it's like a bunch of college students and everybody just like, oh, it's war, but we're living on the base and we're living inside of our office. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
yo, I get that, but like I'm a battlefield kid type of thing. And like I don't understand the politics of this situation right here. I'm out here because I'm injured and y'all treat me like, I just felt like it was just like I don't want to go into too many details, but it was just like a crazy situation. But
Right.
they wound up pretty much taking me out of the office and then put me into a wood shop. And which was like the dopest thing
Huh.
ever because in this wood
Okay.
shop, it was an endless supply of wood and all the
Yeah.
working tools that I wanted. So like I can cut
Okay.
wood and I walk in there and you just have to, like this smell of pine. So what I did
Yeah.
today was I made furniture. So
Oh.
my second time in Iraq, I had to spend a lot of time just making like gun racks and boxes and chairs
Yeah.
and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And it was dope. And eventually, I guess like my PTSD was just like, just getting crazy, and then my injury was getting worse because I wound up like lifting up an air conditioning unit and just like messed my back up even worse. And
Ugh.
I wound up getting sent home, and I wound up getting out shortly afterwards. So
Okay.
the crazy thing about this whole PTSD thing, I didn't even know. Not even back then, I didn't know I had PTSD back then. I didn't know I had PTSD until I got into comedy.
Who told you that you have PTSD?
I had realized it on my own. I realized that it wasn't
Oh,
normal to wear contact lenses when I left the house just in case I got into a fight. You know what I mean?
huh.
And like that's the life I was just living every day for years.
Like your mind was constantly in defense mode, like ready to protect yourself or defend yourself or attack somebody if you needed to, like constantly in potential trigger mode.
Um, Not necessarily, yeah, to defend myself, not necessarily attack anybody, because I think I
Right, right. To protect yourself.
yeah,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
protect myself. Like, okay, I feel like there's danger, and I feel like I'm kind of like a target. You know what I mean?
What would trigger you? Like what is it, a sound or is it a sight or do you not know? Like what was like your trigger in your living in your day to day?
Um, I wouldn't necessarily say that there was a trigger. Um,
Huh.
like there was nothing else. Like, okay, it's time to. It was
Yeah,
just
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
growing up in Philly already. I was already as I walked through the street, I'm already like super alert. Like, okay, I know these people.
High alert.
Yeah, I know this particular area. They got guns over their heads easy. Like, I know. You know what
Right.
I'm saying?
Got it.
So it's more
Got it.
like a super high alert and not necessarily like, oh,
So constantly vigilant. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
constantly vigilant. There you go.
Got it. Got it. Got it.
Go.
So, okay, there's this book that I've been reading. It's called The Body Keeps the Score, and he's a psychiatrist who studies PTSD
Mm.
and brains. Have you heard of this book?
No, the body keeps the score.
It's a pretty The Body Keeps the Score. It's a pretty popular book. So, he studied PTSD among veterans, and then he studied PTSD among like black and brown communities, like children especially who grow up in these poverty-stricken communities, and notice that brain scan wise, very similar.
Mm.
Meaning you probably already had PTSD from growing up in Philly, you know,
Yeah,
growing up like around like guns. Like as you say, you were already in a war zone. You know what I mean?
we used to like.
So yeah.
Yeah, you go to sleep to gunshots. Like
Yeah.
like even my brother, he just wrote a book called it's called filtering. Like it's pretty much just like filtering your daily process or your life processes to find the greatness in it and be able to just pretty much you know drive through any experience with pretty much full power. I'm just like some
Yeah. Yeah.
the book is a whole lot better than that. But inside he
Sure. Yeah.
speaks about what he went through as well, just like walking home from school one day around 6 or 7 years old and
Yeah.
somebody getting shot. So like
Yeah.
that's the environment we grew up in. So you're already just
Uh,
like, okay, this is what happens
yeah.
in the world. This is what happens in our life, and it's just
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's yeah. But I can't
Kind of get normalized
like
to it. Yeah.
that's an American thing, though. I mean, yes, like,
Uh-huh.
as a black person, we go through
Yeah.
quite a bit, but I think anybody who grows up in a conflict ridden zone, um,
Exactly. Yeah. Yes.
um
Even within like a family, like if you have parents who are constantly like hitting each other, screaming at each other, breaking shit all the time, if you had abusive parents
yeah.
who were hitting you all the time, like that's, you're right. Anybody who grew up in a constant state of conflict, they all are going to be hyper vigilant all the time. Right now, I'm reading a book written by Stephanie Fu. She used to work for like This American Life, like on NPR and shit, you know. And she's a Malaysian American, but ethnically Chinese. And she had like severely abusive parents. Like her mother used to beat the shit out of her since she was very young. Her father was also like her father once took like a golf club and tried to like smash her head in. Like her parents both tried to murder her multiple times in her young life. um like her mother abandoned her when she was like very young, and then her father eventually abandoned her when she was a teenager, so severe trauma, right? And she writes about suffering from CPTSD. So a lot of veterans, like they get diagnosed with PTSD from like being in conflict zones. CPTSD, which stands for complex PTSD, is applied for people who had like severely abusive childhoods. And like reading her book, it's like both very painful for me, but also like very enlightening because, you know, like a lot of like Asian American, like Asian diaspora families grew up with like severe physical abuse, you know, like I grew up with corporal punishment like it was just a norm. And then I get older and then I talk about it and the white people are like, that's not normal. Like that's, what are you talking about? Like that's fucking crazy. You know, and like I wasn't born in the States, you know what I mean? Like I was born in South Korea. I grew up in Busan. And back when I was in nursery school, I had teachers who used to beat the shit out of us, you know? Like I'm talking like severe corporal punishment, to the point of like seeing blood on kids' faces and stuff. So, you know, like what you're saying is very illuminating because any human person who has experienced like a lot or sustained a lot of conflict and physical harm or even verbal assault, emotional, mental, or spiritual abuse on a constant, they all have some kind of complex trauma in them.
Mhm.
But what I'm also learning from what you're talking about, like you seem to be very lucky. I mean, that's just what I get. Like from you saying like, oh, like February is like an interesting month for me because there's these huge transitions in February each month. And like I said, February is a very mystical month.
Mhm.
But also you seem to be a very lucky individual because okay, you sustain an injury, a physical injury that you're still kind of suffering from, but they move you out, you go into an office. An office, technically an office is a safer environment, right? Like you are at least protected from physical harm. That's not to say that you're not protected from mental abuse. I've worked in offices, it could be very dehumanizing. But that also doesn't quite work for you. So you end up going into woodwork, which I didn't even know that like that's something that was part of like the whole military experience,
It's
like
not,
doing woodwork. It's not.
no,
So you kind of made it happen yourself?
yeah. We just so happened to have a room that had like well, we had a building that had a wood shop in it, and it was just like, yeah,
Got it.
it was,
Got it.
it was lame.
See, what I'm talking about is like that you go into that with deliberate like will and intention. Like I would say that you doing woodwork has saved you in a huge way because doing woodwork is a very creative outlet.
Mhm.
One massive way of treating trauma is to do something creative with your hands. Like it's like a bilateral movement thing. A lot of psychiatrists talk about it, but they say like if you're feeling crazy, go for a walk because it's a bilateral movement and your brain enjoys bilateral movements.
Mm.
When you're doing woodwork, you're using your hands in a bilateral way. You're giving yourself therapy, and it's a creative outlet. It's like after you finish something, it's like you feel a sense of accomplishment and love for the object. All of that is massively therapeutic, you see? And then eventually you go into like music, you start doing music and comedy. I would say that that whole woodwork thing has been this massive gateway for you to find healing from the war zone conflict that you experienced in Philadelphia and in Iraq and in the office and all of that. And like, yeah, I say that's why you're lucky. And also, when you were talking about how when you were in Iraq, you were genuinely present and recognizing the moments of humanity when you were being present with the families that you were eating with. You know, you're like, oh, I'm on the floor, sitting with them, eating with them from the same plate, from the same bowl. This is an experience, and there's love here, there's connection and humanity here. When you're going and playing with the kids, you're like, I'm connecting with them, there's love and humanity here. It's like your brain was really saving you in a lot of ways is what I'm saying,
Yeah,
you know? And yeah, yeah. No, please go ahead.
it's I don't know. It's one of those things. I kind of accepted early. Well, and I feel bad about this sometimes, but like when we first got there, I'm moving straight off of media. You know what I mean? It's the
Yeah.
enemy. So like I'm just pointing my rifle everywhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
fortunate to say I didn't kill anybody. You know what I mean? That
Right.
had
Right.
I done that, that would have haunted me. So
Oh,
I'm
okay.
I'm blessed to not have done that. Um,
Yeah.
but I was so alert that like, yo, don't look at me. You know,
Oh.
I know what you're about. But
Uh-huh.
after a few months, after like starting to interact with the people, because now we have to go on certain missions where we're going into different areas and we have to talk to the people. It's like, oh, that was actually a cool dude, right? Oh yeah, he's trying to sell us cigarettes. You know what I mean? And you
Yeah.
realize
Yeah.
now you start to think, okay, I'm in their home. And now I start to
Yeah.
wonder, okay, now how would I act if somebody came into my home? So now they're
Mm.
no longer, now you're still technically an enemy if you're trying to do something, but I still understand
Right.
now I'm in your house.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm in a war zone, but I'm in your house. So
Y-
I understand
Wow.
where you're coming from with what you're doing. I'm going to defend myself. I'm going to defend my family that I'm here with, but
Yeah.
I understand you now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So now
Yeah.
it's a person to person interaction versus, you know, a soldier to an enemy.
Yes.
So I was blessed to get that understanding early. So then by the time
Yeah.
I did get closer with the people, now by the time I'm sitting down and I'm eating inside their home, I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm eating with another person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it changes the whole perspective on things.
It does.
I had
It's
like,
huge.
it was a different type of freedom at that point. You know,
Mm.
you, it,
Mm-hmm.
and you know what? Now I think about it, when I go to the desert, that's the reason why I feel free, because that was the probably one of the most freest moments, I guess, at that point in my life that I had ever felt. I had a different understanding of life. I'm in a war zone where you know at any moment they either a
I
bomb
see.
could drop on you or somebody could just show up out of nowhere. And
I see.
because we were the ones delivering fuel, we were constantly
Yeah.
targeted. Like my unit did
Yeah.
more miles throughout Iraq than anybody. We got awards for that because we went in when the war first started. And like we had a gas station on our truck so we can fuel up ourselves and just keep on going. It was a crazy situation. We would do missions for like 21 hours. So we were just constantly out there. So you have no choice but to you go nuts or you accept
Yeah.
where you're at, become extremely vigilant, and just keep on
Yeah.
forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Because your truck was basically a bomb. I mean, you're carrying all that fuel.
Yeah. You know the worst time?
Yeah.
It's the worst time to drive that truck is when it's empty because you're
Huh.
driving in 100 and other was 44 Celsius. I don't know how much that is. Maybe like 130 degrees. It's like it's really,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
when it's empty. you still got the fumes inside that tank, and it's building up and building
Oh.
up. So when we would go up on top of the tank and open the latch, it would fly open because the
Oh
fumes
my God.
were
The
built up.
gases. Yeah.
Yeah, pop.
Holy
So
shit.
if somebody were to hit that truck while it's
Yeah.
empty,
Oh.
so
Fascinating.
that was actually a greater fear than getting hit when it's full. You know?
Wow.
Yeah. So like,
Right on.
there were a lot of times when we would deliver that fuel, and then now we driving back, and that's about a 3 hour ride, and we just like, yo,
Fuck.
hope nobody hit this truck. You know what I'm saying? It's like, yeah, it was wild.
So it's like your mind just went into that mode. It's like I have to be present right now. Like I have nothing but the present moment.
Hmm.
That's that's fascinating.
But
That's fast. You know what's funny is like, so many people, because I live in LA now, as you know, like so many fucking SoCal people are like into the whole like mindfulness and presentness and meditation, but like, we have to like willfully and then intentionally do it by sitting still and closing our eyes, focusing on our breathing. But that's something you had to do you were kind of forced to do that because it's like you don't know when life is going to stop.
yeah,
And like this present moment is all you had. So your whole body and mind just went into alignment anyway, right?
you know what's
It's
crazy
wild.
though, and it's a weird thing that it hurts me so much to this day, and I never even told my mom this. I was there for a whole year, and I don't know if any of my comrades, like my soldier family, went through this, but like I was so gone. I had
Mm,
lost my brother a year before even going to Iraq. I never even
yeah.
up with that. I didn't
Yeah.
realize until like recently that I had been escaping that for so long.
Sure. Yes.
I got to Iraq, and now I'm in this war zone, and I'm just like in constant survival mode. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Just
Yes.
by the time I got back home, I went back to Philly within a month after I got back home, thinking, okay, it's normal, I'm good. I walked into
Right.
my parents' house, and my mom gave me the biggest hug, and
Yeah.
I didn't feel anything.
Right.
And like
Right.
think about it now, it's just like that's my mom. I love my mom so much, and to not really
Yeah.
feel the embrace, you know what I mean? That's how
Oh.
far gone you are after you come
Yeah.
back. You
You still
don't.
feel bad about that? Like you still feel guilty and ashamed about that?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how I feel. I just feel bad. I don't know if I
I see.
necessarily feel like I don't know. Maybe I do feel a little guilty, maybe a little bit ashamed because this is my mom's. You know what I mean? But
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I do understand. I have to have an understanding for myself. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So like I look back at my younger self, and like this is the reason why comedy helped me, because for comedy you have to start looking in your past and find the bad situations and make it funny, and then you bring it to the
Uh-huh.
so it forced me
Yeah.
to look back and start to look at my younger self as a separate person. So now I look at my younger self and I'm like, okay, that's what you were going through. That's what he was going through. I understand.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily feel guilty. It's
Yeah.
I'm still seeking to understand the person that I was at that time and why I felt the way
Yeah.
I felt. And
Yeah.
it's I don't,
Yeah.
it's there's so much that just goes on within this world of PTSD. It's like you put these soldiers in an environment that's even more beautiful than their own home, and
Right.
then you bring them back to a regular environment, and it's like, yo, go back to work. He was like, oh, hold on. But there were palm trees over here. There was palm trees and
Exactly.
oases
Yeah.
and and
Yeah.
cold. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's this. I don't
They
know.
don't give you any room to process anything. Yeah.
Not, but how do you get like how do you provide that for anybody? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like they, you don't like they offer you counseling when you get back. They say, do you need counseling? I'm like, no, dude, I'm from Philly.
Oh.
You know,
Oh.
so I didn't even need
Oh.
counseling. I'm like, this is normal for me. This is what we do.
Uh-huh.
I didn't know it
Uh-huh.
was normal. I'm a young dude. I just survived a war zone. I'm like, yo, I'm good, man. They need counseling.
Yeah.
Everyone's crying.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
You know what I'm saying? But even still,
Mm.
what type of counsel you gonna give somebody who's been dealing with this type of zone like their whole life? You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
there is no regular counseling for that type of person. So it's like I don't even know what can help like a lot of soldiers at this point, especially if you're a black soldier that comes from the type of environment that where I'm from.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No. Yeah, but this again, this is why I say you're lucky, man. Like you're a very lucky individual because earlier when you were talking about how you felt, so anyway, like when you were talking about how like your mother embraced you and you felt nothing, like you felt numbness, that's uh that's because you were in a state of disassociation. They use this term a lot in PTSD. You were disassociating. You had been disassociating since you were a child, I'm sure. Like guns are going off, but you have to go to sleep because it's nighttime. You have to just accept that this is normal. You're disassociating from your humanity, which is to be like, this is frightening, this is not okay, like I should have peace and calm. So since you were a child, you were disassociating anyway from any threat or fear, because to be in constant alert and fear like that is like no way to live. You can't live, right? So you were disassociating since you were a child. But I think, as you mentioned, your disassociation was happening even more intensely after your brother passed away,
Yeah.
right? You ran away to the army basically, and you ran into the war zone because you were like, I want to disassociate from the pain of losing my brother because it's a massive pain.
Mhm.
And while you were in Iraq, while you were serving, you were disassociating even more because there's like constant threat of death all around you. But while disassociating, you were also learning mindfulness. You were like, I have to be present and alert at all times. So that mindfulness thing was kind of treating you in some way, was healing you in some way,
Mhm.
right? And then when I asked you, like, oh, like when your mother embraced you and you feel bad, like, was that bad feeling? Was it shame or guilt? And you were like, yes, maybe, but you said, I have to understand my younger self in that moment. That is also talked about a lot in trauma therapy, where they say speaking to your younger self, having love for your younger self, accepting your younger self for who and what they are in that moment, giving them the love that they need, that is a huge, massive part of healing. Like they do that therapy all the time. They call it inner child therapy. And you were doing that just on your own. You see? This is what I mean by saying you're lucky, Saeed, because it's like your mind, your higher consciousness, we could call it the divine, we can call it your inner being, we could call it whatever. Like it seems like they're looking out for you. Like they're really looking out for your lived reality, your body and your mind in a really powerful way, because it's like you're able to come to these kinds of wisdoms and insights just kind of on your own, and you seek it willingly because I think you do have an intense love for yourself. You know, that's why like I wanted to talk to you about you being vegan, because I was like, you know, I know that like meat is not good for me. Like I know you can like look at people and be like, oh, like what blood type they are. And I was like, when you first did that, I was like, that's fascinating. That's fascinating that he can do this just by reading books. That's fucking crazy. But
Uh,
like I went to a holistic doctor a bunch of years ago, and you know, he just takes my pulse, you know. It's like in India, like they call it Ayurveda, and in Korea they call it 8 body types, but they take your pulse and they designate like what kind of body type you are, and they say like these kinds of foods are good for you, gives you energy, these kinds of foods are bad for you, they take away your energy. So meat for me especially, because my kidneys and my liver are weak,
mhm.
and that's what processes meat. It's like I would get congested whenever I eat meat. Um, Wheat, dairy, sugar, these things that I love to eat, spicy foods, it make me sweat like hell, so it drains my energy.
Uh,
Like if I eat these things, it's fun and it's good in the moment. Like I love eating it in the moment, but afterwards I have to pay for it dearly. I'm like really tired, depressed, fogginess, cloudiness in my head, and joint problems. That was the thing that was getting to me lately. I was like, I can't even sit for a long time. If I sit for a long time and I get up, whole body's just like stiff.
yeah.
And I've been trying to get into yoga lately, and yoga is like strength training, like muscle training. And I'm like, I can't even do some of these moves because I have so much lactic acid in my muscles from all the dairy I've been eating, which I know is not good for me. And it's not that dairy and meat is bad for everybody. There's certain body types that thrive off of them. Like my mom, for instance, like she's a totally different body type from me. But I was like, if I want to say I love myself and I care for myself, then I have to be vigilant and good to myself in terms of what kind of foods I eat and be conscious, right?
Yeah.
And so anyway, that's why I was like thinking about you. I was like, oh, I want to talk to Saeed about this because like I remember when he first told me about this stuff, I was like, oh, it's so interesting how dedicated he is to his health. Like you know, you went to doctors for your back pain. They couldn't help you with it. So you just read all these books. Like you just like educated yourself, empowered yourself, and you were like, "Oh, let me try this, let me try that." And you figured out a way to treat like your own treatment regimen for your health. And I was just like, yeah, I was just in awe of that, you know? And that's why I wanted to talk to you about that. So,
When you're 24 years old and you're walking up the street with a cane, you got to figure something out.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's like true story. You know what I mean? You got to figure something out. You like, yo, I'm way too young to be feeling like this. And like I said, I still to this day, I still feel pain, but it's it's not to the extent as it was. And
Yes.
even though I still feel pain, I'm still grateful for the decisions that I made. I'm like, okay, I know how it would like right now. I'm happy I can still sit down. Like if I sit down for too long, I still got the issue with like sciatic nerve that goes down like my leg, and you know your butt start hurting. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
before, it was just like I couldn't even sit down for a few minutes.
Yeah.
But like that nerve
Yeah.
start running down there, your toes start getting numb, and then like
Uh,
the nerve from my cause it's the C3 C4 I believe in my neck,
yeah. Yeah.
and so that started
Yeah.
causing a problem like in my arm and like like my pointer finger, my thumb start getting numb. It's just like if I I can't type for too long because it still happens. You know, it's like
Yeah.
extreme carpal tunnel type of thing, which is also
Yeah.
is why I'm like super happy that I have the job I have now with the teaching thing because I don't have to sit down and like type anymore. I can just like
Yes.
talk to people and use my hands. I'm like,
Yes, yes, yes.
yeah.
Mm,
But I'm gonna tell you,
I love that.
I'm gonna tell
Yeah.
you that right there, going to war and like
Yeah.
surviving that just makes everything else easy at this point. Like I said, the job
Uh,
I have now, I teach in 100%
yeah.
German. I use
Yeah.
maybe two English words throughout the day. But
Yes.
I'm gonna be honest, and not to toot my own horn, but it takes a lot of confidence to just like say, you know what, I'm gonna go in there and do that. And my German ain't perfect,
Yeah.
but I speak
Yeah.
enough to like get the point across. And so with
Right.
being in the military, you have to like make a decision and just go full force with it because if you don't, you can die,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Or and it's the same thing with the stage. You know how that feels.
Yeah.
You gotta go out there. You got these jokes, and you know somebody gonna feel some type of way about it, but you gotta commit to it. And they just
Right.
feel
Right.
some type of way about it. But I'm gonna tell these jokes.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
weird thoughts out of my head. You know what I'm saying? So it's like
Yeah.
whatever you went through, it caused you to do the same thing. We're just like, you know what? This is the life that we live. I'm gonna go full force and I'm gonna make this happen. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, everything that we go through leads us in a particular direction. And I guess for me, my go through was the military and the neighbor.
Mm.
And your go through was what the experiences that you had coming up.
Yeah. Yeah. I yeah, I love that. I love that, you always have this sort of like you kind of see the blessing in everything, Like there is a blessing in this. Like there is some like silver lining to this, and you do emphasize that, and I think that's awesome. Okay, so since my podcast is called K-Drama School, I do talk about K-dramas, and we'll wrap with this. So I ask you questions, and this like you could improvise your answers. This is supposed to be the fun part. Comics love this part.
Mhm.
Like I just ask you, what would you do if you were this character in this situation? And you just riff off of that, okay? So you ready? All right, so the show I'm basing these questions on is called Encounter. Let's say you're a Korean woman in her late 30s named Suhyun, and you're the CEO of a chain of hotels. All right, you're a big honcho, big lady. You're working on a new hotel opening in Cuba. So you're in Cuba, and one evening you couldn't sleep. So you go for a walk by yourself, and some asshole steals your purse. You lose your phone, you lose your wallet, you're stranded, you have no idea how to get back to the hotel. What do you do?
I'll probably enroll in like a jujitsu class first, and then buy some good brass knuckles. Um, I don't know, and I'll probably just go nuts. I'll probably get like real diesel. I'll be like the most diesel Asian woman in her mid 30s walking around Cuba just ready to just put hands on somebody if they try to get this cash out of my wallet. And then I'll be like super successful. You know what I mean?
Okay. All right. So as soon as you lose your wallet and phone, in that moment, you just learn jujitsu so that you
Like,
could just get
like in
diesel
that
as
moment.
hell. Yeah, in that moment, what would you do in that moment? You lost your wallet, your phone, your purse. You're
Oh, like
stranded
me
in
personally,
Cuba.
I'm gonna probably be like, yo, okay, I guess I wasn't supposed to have that. Like, you know what I'm saying? What's next?
Oh, just move on from it.
Yeah, pretty.
Okay. Wow. Wow. Okay. Radical acceptance of the moment. Shit. Okay. I wasn't expecting that. Okay. Okay. Fine. Let's say you're a young man. Now you're a young man named Chin Hyuk. Okay. You're in your mid 20s. You were in Cuba alone vacationing, and then you meet this hot lady in her late 30s. And you end up really liking her. You guys had a great time. She seems very businesslike, very well off, but you don't ask her too many questions. You don't even know her name. You don't know anything personal about her. You just enjoyed her company that one day. Now, you get back to Seoul where you live, and they say you got a job. You got an entry-level job in hospitality management at a hotel. You go to orientation on first day of your work, and the CEO at the platform talking to you guys is that lady you met in Cuba who you like. She's your boss. What do you do?
She's my boss. Well, I'll probably catch her in the coffee break room and just like talk to her like on a regular basis, not even like in a flirtatious type of way, just to kind of fill out the vibe. And then she giving me that vibe back. I'm gonna see if I can get promoted.
Oh my god. Okay. All right, shit. Okay. Fine. Let's say you're that CEO lady. You're Suhyun now, okay? You were having a really bad day, so you ask this guy Jin Hyuk to go and get ramen with you, all right? But the next day, there's a photo of you and a young man with his face all blurred out all over the news. And they're speculating on a new love interest in your life, this big, powerful CEO lady. People are dragging around this poor guy in the dirt without even knowing anything about him. Okay, you feel bad. What do you do?
Oh, like they're dragging him in the dirt.
Yeah.
I mean, more than likely, I would have to stick up for the person. I mean, if they found out who he is, you know what I'm saying? I would
Mm,
stick up for the person. Like, yo, nah, don't even do that. I know this guy from the past, really good guy, and I'm kind of like mentoring him in the right direction at this point. We're working at the same company. He told me about his
mm.
goals, so on and so on. I would have to step up for the person.
Okay.
You know,
Interesting. All right, mentoring. That's an interesting strategy. Okay, okay, okay. You're that same CEO lady, okay? You're Suhyun now, okay? You used to be married to a really rich guy, but your ex said he wanted to leave you to be with another woman, okay? So you agreed on this divorce. As a settlement for the divorce, his family gave you this chain of hotels that you are now a CEO of. Now, your ex mother in law is telling you to get back together with her son and threatens to take away the hotel and ruin your reputation by taking more photographs of you and that young man if you don't get back together with her son. What do you do?
I'll sell the hotel and take my losses. There ain't no point in being with somebody you ain't happy with. It's going to be even worse when the money is involved. So I'll sell the hotel
Hmm.
and keep it moving. Remove her power.
Oh, shit. Okay. Wow. Just give it all up. Okay. Fascinating. Fascinating. All right. All right. Let's say you're Jin Hyuk now. You're that young man.
Okay.
People at the office are speculating that you and the CEO have some romantic thing going on, okay? Your friend and coworkers at the office, they're like giving you shit about it. They're telling you you don't belong with somebody like her. Colleagues at work are giving you shit, saying that they don't feel comfortable around you now that you're dating their boss. Your mother tells you not to ruin your life by dating some older divorced woman who is way out of your economic league. What do you do?
First off, they wouldn't even know about anything if I was doing it. And then the second side of it would be, I mean, people going to talk. What you going to do about that? You know what I mean?
Mm,
I would more than likely, only person I would have a conversation with is my mom and just make her understand whatever decision I'm making is based off of how I feel and what I feel like I need to do. Everybody else, they can kick rocks.
Mm,
As long as I keep
got it.
quiet, eventually everybody else is gonna quiet down.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. Got it. But you guys are dating. I guess I forgot to
So
mention that.
we
You
are
guys are
actually
dating.
dating.
Yeah,
That's
you
even,
guys are in love.
that's even more reason for me to keep it quiet.
Got it. Got it. Okay. All right. Final question. I love how direct and simple you are with these answers, by the way. It's like you're very righteous. You're like, I got my morals and ethics and I'll stick to them. Like, I don't care how crazy it gets over there. I know what I'm about. Okay, okay, okay. Final question. Let's say you're Jin Hyuk, you're the young man, okay? You come to work one day and somebody tells you that you're being transferred to a different hotel location. This is done intentionally to separate you from Suhyun, the CEO. On top of that, Suhyun's ex-husband has now been named co-CEO of the hotel chain that she is owning, and he's around a lot more, and he's sending her flowers. He's trying to get back into her life. This is your woman. What do you do?
Well, I'm gonna look at the fact that I'm being relocated as a dope opportunity. I ain't gotta deal with these knuckleheads no more. And as far as her, I'm gonna keep on doing what I'm doing. If we supposed to be
Mm,
together, it's gonna work out. If it ain't, she can go. I mean, put it like this: if he could win her over with whatever he's doing, then she ain't supposed to be with me anyway.
yeah,
And it might be painful, but eventually I'm not gonna care. You know, time moves past, and so does bad experiences. So it is what it is.
yeah. Okay. Again, very chill about the whole thing. Yeah, yeah. So much trust. So much self-trust. It's great.
Hey, been I've been through 10 years of marriage and a nasty divorce. So it's like, it,
That's right.
it is what
Okay.
it is.
It is what it is. Whatever. Fuck it. It was lovely talking to you, Saeed. Thank you
Hey,
for making the
likewise,
time.
Grace. You need to come back to Berlin, man.
Yeah, I do. I will. I will very soon.
Yeah. Hey, thanks
All right.
for